and we're on the air. I don't know if this is the air or not, but we're on. And this is actually, I had it Sydney and Malcolm, but it's really Syd and Malcolm, SYD and Malcolm.
Right. You could call me Sid Vicious
Syd Vicious.
or Sid Delicious. Either way, I go both ways.
But it was an interesting story. You spell your name SYD.
Actually, I didn't spell it that way because my mom did not speak English when she gave birth to me, and she let my uncle, her brother, my Uncle Morris, fill out the certificate at the hospital. And my Uncle Morris spelled my name Sydney, but never told my mother that. So when she registered me in school, I was registered at Sidney, and it wasn't until I was 18 when I was registering for the draft that I looked at my birth certificate and saw it was not spelled like any way that it was all through high school. And I've had problems with it because my social security card was filled out Sidney. And my first driver's license was SID, not NEY, just SID. And I had to change all of that. But what I never changed was my social security number. And what happened was I'm now getting social security and it's spelled SIDNEY.
Can you get a SIDNEY and also SYDNEY? You couldn't change it?
No, they won't allow me to change it at this point. But all my other documents, marriage license, home purchase, mortgage, is all SYD.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, are you sure you're legal?
I don't know if I'm legal. I'm of legal age. I think that'd be right.
Now we were on a previous show that we had on the Many Shades of Green with Maxine Rubin, and you have a fascinating story about what you're doing mainly. What is that? Tell the audience.
Well, the key for me is to make the world a better place. And I've spent the last 40 years of my life doing that. In 1981, I had an epiphany with my father when we were in Israel at the first World Gathering of Jewish Holocaust survivors at the Western Wall. And over a period of about 5 minutes, something passed between both of us. And we came out of it, and I felt that I had a huge purpose to go back to America and change the world. And he felt the same way. And we talked about it for days. And that's exactly what I've done for the last 40 years.
Fantastic. Now, what have you done to change the world? I've tried to change the world by just being quiet.
Well, I am not loud, but I let my actions speak louder than my voice. Just to go back, when I was a child, I couldn't speak. For about 4 years, I had a very bad stutter and I could not speak at all. And at that point, I went to a speech school in New York. And over a period of about a year, I learned how to speak, that I did not stutter, and I was able to speak. And I attribute it to a couple of things. I think it's genetic because one of my uncles also had a stutter when he was younger. One of my daughters had a stutter when she was 4 or 5 for about a year, and it went away. But I did not speak English. I spoke German. When I came to America, my parents were 2 months from the time that they landed here, March 1st, 1950, and I was born May 27th, 1950. And we spoke German in the house, and I learned English when I was probably in kindergarten, first grade. And I believe that that affected my ability to speak, in a lot of ways. I couldn't really speak and think in both languages simultaneously. So I think I got tongue-tied from it. And since I was unable to speak, I was very unpopular in school. Kids made fun of me. Teachers thought me dumb. Uh, I had a very funny thing when I was in Hebrew school, and I was probably 8 or 9. My father didn't want to send me to yeshiva. He felt that I am an American, I should go to public school, but he made me go to uh, a Hebrew school after school, which was from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday from 9 to 12.
Wow.
I was more in school than all my family who were yeshiva buchas. Uh, One of my teachers, when I was probably like the second year of Hebrew school, I was probably around 7 or 8. He said to me, Shloima, it's my name in Hebrew, it is better to be thought dumb than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. And that always has stuck with me. So sometimes being quiet is not a bad thing.
No, it's funny. You say Shloima or Shloimo?
Shlomo. Shlomo is my grandfather who was killed in the Holocaust name. And my middle name, Shmuel, was my father's father. So I was named for both of my parents' parents.
Well, my Yiddish name is Matcha Shloima.
So Shloima is Shlomo for Solomon, one of the wiser of our sages.
And you said, I thought you said that your parents came from Poland.
Poland and Germany. Mom was German and moved to Poland in the 1930s. Went to German schools. Dad was Polish but spoke Yiddish. But after the war, they met in a displaced persons camp in München, in Munich, called Landsberg, and they spoke German. Their mom was more comfortable. But my father learned German, which he knew somewhat from his Yiddish, but they were German speakers. And my mom continued to speak German to one of her sisters who survived until her sister passed. Every Sunday, she would call her sister who lived near Haifa, and they would speak for an hour every Sunday in German. And it allowed her sister to continue her German, even though she had learned Hebrew. And it kept my mother speaking German, which, as she had learned English. And I felt comfortable listening. I had an opportunity about 8 or 9 years ago. One of our daughters took a job in Berlin. And I went to Germany with her to help her find an apartment for a couple of weeks. And within a week, I was speaking German again. It just came back to me after all those years.
Are you good in music?
Yes.
Because I find out people who have a facility with languages also are very good with music. It's sort of like they have an ear. I have an ear. I don't have an ear for either. So I mean, I'm lucky I speak English.
One of our sons, which we did not know until he was about 8 or 9, was born with perfect pitch. And we found it out in a very circuitous way. We had a family mishpacha, not related to me or my wife, but related to a relative of ours. And I was friendly with him, Uncle Fred, on my wife's side, but in his early 90s, and he was dying. He was up in Lenox Hill Hospital in New York. And I went to see him. He was in not great shape, but he was comfortable and he was able to react and speak, and he was glad for the company. And there was a member of the other side of his family, this guy Jay Bainey. And Jay Bainey was a professional singer at the Metropolitan Opera. He was a baritone. And he was with them over 20 years. And at the time, my sons were, I think, 7 and 8, or 7 and 8. And he said, the opera's always looking for children to sing on stage through the operas that they have, and there is an organization called the Metropolitan Opera Children's Chorus, which is always recruiting and training talented children. He says, "Would your children be interested in auditioning?" And I didn't even think about it. I said, I think it'd be great for them just to see the Metropolitan
Yeah.
Opera. So if we could take them to see the opera and they would get auditioned, that'd be awesome. So he made an arrangement for us. And my two sons, the younger one, Dylan, and the older one, Ryan, uh, Ryan was not that excited about it, but Dylan was excited. Oh my God, we're going to go to the city and see the opera. And we went in, my wife and I, my wife Diane and I, and they were auditioned. And after they were both auditioned, uh, the uh, the chorus mistress, Eleanor Doria, very famous uh, soprano at the Met in the 1970s. And she was the head of the children's chorus. She runs out gushing. She says, "Oh my God, your son has perfect pitch." And at that moment, I said, I hope it's Dylan, because he was so excited about going to the opera. And she said, "No, it's Ryan," who really was ambivalent about the whole thing. And it turned out that Ryan was accepted to the children's chorus, where he sang for 5 seasons, 5 years. The time that he was 8.5, probably, till he was over 13. And he was in 190 operas.
Well, till his voice changed.
His voice was still very melodic when it changed, but after he left the opera, Malcolm, he never sang again.
Really?
He was done because the amount of work. He was in fourth grade in elementary school, and I had to take him to the opera. And we live on Long Island, about an hour away by train. He had to have voice lessons from 4 to 5:30, 3 days a week. And when he was in an opera, he still needed to take the voice lessons, but then he'd have 2, 3 days a week of rehearsals for the
Yeah,
opera.
that's a commitment.
And the whole summer, June, July, August, he was committed to it. And thank God, another girl who lived in the area, this girl, Dina Fink, uh, also had tried out for the opera, also had perfect pitch, and they were both accepted. And the greatest thing was that I would take him in by train and go home, and her mother would take the train in and take him back home. So that really was great.
What I'm thinking now is, I know that you're religious. Did he become a cantor at least?
No.
Anyway, what we're going, as I say, we're talking about what I want to do in the show is just talk about what's happening, whether it be current events, whether it be history, whether it be how we grew up, and between us for the next few weeks, solve all the problems of the world.
I think that we could at least do a blueprint.
Yeah.
We could do a plan.
Yeah.
I think that I have some successful tactics that I've done that are transferable and are teachable and trainable to help change people to feel more complete about their lives.
Yeah.
And it's worked for me. And I have thousands of people that I've changed over the last 30 years, giving them a means to be more complete. If you believe Maslow's theory of self-actualization, you can't be complete until you give back. And as successful as the greatest CEOs and titans of industry are, unless they could be self-actualized, they're not complete. And people that are very successful get to that point, that they get to a point that they can't they can't make any more money, or they can't buy any more businesses, but they still feel something lacking within them. And we're able to fill that. And we've been able to do that in a way that helps people. And what I tried to do was make this country, the country that took my parents in, the best that it could be. And for me, because hunger was something that my parents suffered through in concentration camp, and really inculcated to me and my sisters how things were for them, and how they would go to bed at night and wake up and someone was dead next to them that had passed from malnutrition
Wow.
or from thirst and hunger. And it kind of stuck with me. And I felt that if I could change the world, which I'd wanted to do, I thought that would be a great way to thank America for taking my folks in to try to reduce poverty here in our country.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's a huge task because there are reasons why there will always be hunger and poverty in the United States. And regardless of who's president or who was president, who's going to be president, our economic system of capitalism is based on Keynesian economic theory. And what Keynes basically said was that to have a successful economy, you'll never get over 90% inclusion. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of them are based on people that have been incarcerated, people that are in between jobs, people that just don't want to work, and people that might be handicapped and can't get on their feet. Others may have been going through a divorce, going through a rough time, health issues. And that's 10%, according to Keynes, that does not fit into the model of successful capitalism. So I turn that around and I say, if 90% inclusion is what we're going for in the United States that has 330 million people, there will always be a cohort of 33 million Americans that are not going to be able to partake in the success of our economy. And that's who I look to
Sure.
feed, look to increase their life in some way, and understanding, regardless of how successful we are, there is no country in the world that has gotten over 90%, which is fabulous. If you could get to 90% inclusion of your country, you won't have revolution, but if you only have 50% of your country doing well, then you'd have 150 million Americans that are going to revolt.
Yeah.
But with 300 million Americans doing okay, not every, there are different levels of okay. But you only have 33 million Americans, and even if they revolt, they won't be able to change the economic system that is already embedded in American and Western culture. So,
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying about the need to give. After I graduated college, in New York, it was, it was a Jewish middle class. Everybody went to therapy, no
really,
matter no matter if you need it or not. To me, I always considered it continuing education. The more you know about yourself, the better off you are. And after going to individual therapy for years, I started going to group therapy, and I found out that best I ever felt was when I went to group therapy and I could aid somebody else through a rough period and give to them and feel for them. And
that's the self-actualization.
that was a
Absolutely.
feeling of well-being for
Yep.
me.
And it is something that is embedded in you, that you need that to feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
And you'll probably never feel any better, which is good and bad, but you know how good you felt.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance that that's what you strive for to this day unconsciously, because it did give you the endorphins, it gave you a sense of self that you were able to help others.
Well, and consciously, because I noticed with a lot of the people that I keep in contact with, I'm one of the few people that keep in contact with them. I have a group.
The joy that you received.
Yeah, I have a group of friends that sort of they're almost when I call them up, they're so happy because they're not that type of person. They're not gregarious people. They stay by themselves. And it's an old, it was a Charlie Brown cartoon I saw one time. And I think it was Charlie Brown or Lucy or someone says, I stay in a room, I take the room and I put it underground, and I lock myself off. But if you love me, you'll find me. A lot of people are like that.
Yeah.
They shelter themselves because for whatever reason they don't want to be hurt or they're afraid, and then and then they sort of feel bad because nobody gives to
Well,
them or
I
reaches out.
I have another observation that I've made in my life, and that is this: there are people that are risk takers, and there are people that are not risk takers. I'm a risk taker. I see the unknown and I see a friend. Many people see the unknown and they don't see a friend. They see fear, they see an enemy. And I believe that you can't teach that. I think it's embedded in your DNA, it's embedded in the way that you live your life. But when you see the unknown and see a friend, you're always willing to experience the unknown.
Mhm.
And sometimes it'll bite you in the butt, but other times you'll be very successful because of that. And that to me has been one of the keys that has allowed me to look at new things that never have been done before. Look at things that people have failed at, but I think that I could succeed in. And that I think is one of the reasons why I've started all of my organizations. Some of them have failed, but those that have succeeded have really succeeded well, and have been very successful. We have since 1991 we have fed over 1 billion people,
Wow.
and it's a number which means a lot to me because I know how much work it took to get to feed that 1 billion people, and it really was work. But in the end, it's almost like Sisyphus pushing up that boulder. When you're working with a cohort of 33 million people that have to eat every day, you're never done. You're always finding additional resources, people to help you to feed those people because they have to eat every day. It's not like this is a war that you're going to be winning. This is a sociological earth that you're trying to maintain to live another day.
Well, you have
And
33 million people. Are they all over the world, or are they US
just
or
no, just in the United
United
States.
States?
That's how many people are food insecure on a regular basis.
That many.
Yeah, and sometimes more. When the economy was bad in the late 2008, 9, and
Yeah, that's yeah.
2010, there were close to 50 million Americans that are food insecure. Right now, with the pandemic going on, there's a good chance that it's close to that number again. The amount of people that are availing themselves of soup kitchens, pantries, shelters, places that supply food is huge. And a lot of it are people that are transitively in poverty. When the economy gets better, that 49,000, I think, is going to shrink back down to the 33. I mean, 49 million will shrink back down to the 33 million that are always there. And the job that we have in helping to feed them, it's not a win-win. It never was, because if you can't change their needs and what they need on a daily basis, then you have to fulfill them. And that's what I do. I find ways of filling those bellies up on a daily basis through all of the resources that I'm able to motivate.
But
And that's what I wake up in the morning always feeling, Malcolm, that I'm not doing enough. It's it's a sad thing because so many people tell me what a great job we're doing. Oh my God, the charity is great. I don't feel that. I feel that if we're not feeding those 33 million people, I'm not doing my job. And it's what drives me every morning to get up and to do what I do. And on a personal basis, I do food recovery every day. I
Mhm.
go out and I find people that have excess food. I pick it up and I deliver it to I know someone who gives it out on 7 days a week. And I look forward to that when I don't feel it, when I'm away on a vacation. I want to say with my wife around, when I'm away on vacation, I miss getting up in the morning and feeding people. It has
Mm.
become so tattooed into my genes that I feel empty when I don't do that. And I think it's because of doing it now for 30 years. Uh, it makes me whole every day.
Well,
When
do you find that there's a root cause of people not having the money or not being able to eat? Is there a, what I look at it is there, aside from feeding them, which is great, but is there a way of getting them not to be hungry? Like you say, if you give a man a food or a fish, he'll have something to eat. But if you get him a fishing pole, he'll always be able to eat. Is there a root cause that you can? Uh,
I have not found that to be true, by the way. I know it's a very big adage in Christianity.
hmm,
Uh, if you give them fish, they'll eat for a day. If you teach them how to fish, they'll eat for the rest of their
right.
lives. Uh, there may be no fishing ponds or places that they could get food near them. There are reasons why there is endemic poverty in populations. And it could be as simple as genetically people don't want to work. They'd rather not work. If they're given things for free, we were in Cuba a couple of years ago, and I'm a big cigar smoker. So I wanted to go to Havana. I wanted to see where cigars came from. I wanted to see the factories. I wanted to see the country, the people. And we had a tour guide who was with the government. And she, explained to us that everyone in Cuba gets food, everyone in Cuba gets housing free. They have found now since 1959, when the revolution took place there, that they have a number of people that absolutely don't want to do anything. And you know what the number is? 25%. 25% of their population does not work. They don't do anything except what the government gives them, and they spend the day hanging out, being with their friends, living a life that may be to them fulfilling, but it's
Mhm.
25% in a communist country that gives them everything and they want to do nothing. And I believe that number because not only did we see it, but they told us that's their number. So they don't expect to have more than 75% inclusion in their economy, which is 15% lower than in capitalism, where we're looking to get 90% inclusion. They're looking to get 75%
Yeah.
inclusion in communism. And that was very eye opening for me. We were there for a couple of other reasons. Let me just
It's Fidel. Well, he's not around anymore. Raul.
that's my mom.
Uh,
That's my mom's mom, my wife's mother.
mm,
What we found was very, very interesting. I wanted to see some of the churches, the synagogues in Havana. They go back 400 years. Havana is one of the earlier set cities on the Western Hemisphere. And we saw amazing churches that were tourist attractions. And people prayed in them, but very quietly. And we
mm,
went to two synagogues in Havana. One was Sephardic and one was Ashkenazi, and they still had a small population there. And they knew we were coming in. I was with another couple, Diane and I, and our friends Alan and Iris. And when we got done at the synagogue, the president of the shul was waiting to speak to us. and she was a dentist. And she called us downstairs and she says, well, I hope you like what you saw. I said, no, very interesting. She said, well, we have a small, but passionate congregation. And then she took us down to her office, and off of her office was a storeroom. And she opened it up, and it was full of medical supplies. And I said, is that something that your population needs here? And she said to me, regardless of what you hear about how good medicine is in our country, my people run out of their drugs in the middle of every month. My diabetics, my people that are on chronic treatment. So if you in any way could help us, it would be really, really important to us. So I went back to America, and I have friends that are doctors and I have friends that own companies, and I send them, until this pandemic, I send them down probably $200 to $300 a month worth of medical supplies. It's children's antibiotics. I send them down diabetic syringes. And all that is because they run out of these supplies in the middle of every month.
Can you do that now with the political
I can't do it.
situation?
No, everything's closed down. My partner in Cuba has no ability of getting anything in the country. There was a time when she went down every month. She had a house in Havana, and she had a house in Silver Springs, Maryland. And she was able to travel. The first month, whatever we sent was confiscated. But we tried it again, and she saw people there at the airport, and they allowed her to take it in. And that went on for years now. And hopefully when it opens up, we'll be able to send down medical supplies again to this congregation.
Yeah, what I can't understand, not even getting into politics, but it does get into politics. It's, to me, we're a one world. Anything that affects it's at one time. I mean, many years ago, we never knew people from other countries. Especially the United States, we were separated by oceans, and people didn't come over from other countries. Very, very rarely. Now, no matter what happens today, what happens today in any parts of the world, we'll hear about it. It'll be on the news. People from the other parts of the world will come and visit us. They'll see it on TV. I can do this through Zoom throughout the whole world. If we want to interview somebody, or you want to have the guest, in Israel, we can have the, we do a three-way in Israel. If you wanted to maybe get the doctor in Cuba, I don't know if we could do that. Are they blocked off from Zoom, or?
It's a different internet.
Different internet.
Yeah. In fact, they even have a different currency. The currency, if you're visiting, are called kooks. And kooks, Cucs, and that's the money that you get. You get kooks.
It's very kooky.
Which has a different exchange rate than the peso, which is what the Cubans used to spend. So, and they're different values. So, kooks are for tourists, and regardless of whatever happened with the U.S. and Cuba has been open to the rest of the world. People from China, people from Europe, Africa, Asia, they all go to Cuba because they've heard it's a fun place to go visit. The food's good, the people are nice. That the U.S. wasn't there, as they say, nish gefehler, no big deal.
No big deal. Anyway, Syd, we've used our 30 minutes.
No way.
We've used about almost 40 minutes.
That went pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it does. What I tend to do each week at this time, which is Tuesdays, my time, Tuesdays at 1:00. Come on, let's do a half hour, talk about whatever we want to talk about. As I say, I like to cure the world of any of the the problems that's there. You do the hunger, we'll do philosophy, we'll do who you are, what drives you. But what you reminded me is I was listening to the Congress the other day, for Merrick Garland.
Okay.
And he said his parents came, escaped. I forget, Poland. Was it Poland? Maybe they might have been Poland. They escaped the concentration camps, and now he's so thankful for the U.S., for America to take them in, that he just wants to give back. That's his raison d'etre, like you.
Yeah.
He wants to give back. That was his epiphany. I'd like to talk to you about your epiphany. Is your father still around, or is he passed?
My father passed about 7 years ago, but I had a really big smile today because on my Facebook feed came a picture up from 8 years ago for Purim, where I was dressed as a chassid with a strummel and peyot coming out of the strummel, and my father was dressed as Stevie Wonder with a hat and dreadlocks coming down and sunglasses. And my father was blind. And it was just almost prophetic that there he was, channeling Stevie Wonder, and I was channeling the chassid.
Anyway, we'll bring that up next week. Anyway, have a great week. Keep on
Thank
doing
you.
good.
Thank you.
And I'll
Thanks
speak to
so
you
much.
next week. Okay, bye.
Bye.